What's up, everyone? I'm Drew. Welcome to the first episode of Second Opinion, a series where we take a look at games which received underwhelming reviews from critics and coincidentally we enjoyed. This episode, we look at Shadowrun. For those of you who are unaware of this diamond in the rough, Shadowrun, released in May of 2007 for the Xbox 360 and PC, is a first-person shooter developed by Microsoft's FASA Studios, now defunct. It blends advanced technology such as X-ray vision with ancient magic such as resurrection spells and teleportation. The game pits a corporation known as RNA against a rebel group calling itself the Lineage in capture the flag-oriented battles. Both factions are capable of using magic and tech and have essence bars, which are essentially mana pools. Among both of these factions are four races: elves, dwarves, trolls, and of course, humans. Each has their own unique racial passive. Elves are the fastest but weakest and regenerate health. Dwarves are immune to headshots and bleeding out due to katana wounds, and have the most mana. Yes, there are katanas. Trolls are insanely tanky and use their mana to shield themselves against gunfire. Humans have no limit to the amount of tech they can equip, and start off the match with a bit of extra cash. These racial passives, coupled with the magic and tech that are for purchase at the beginning of each round, allow for intense and hectic battles for the control of an artifact, which functions as a flag in this game. Sounds pretty interesting, right? Many critics and players didn't seem to think so. The average rating given to Shadowrun by gaming critics was a 66 according to Metacritic. That's a D. While receiving some scores in the 90s and 80s, the overwhelming majority gave it a 75 or below. There were a few consistent negative comments about the game. The lack of single-player campaign was at the top of the list. Now, one of the biggest issues I see with this is that critics feel that a single-player mode is necessary. The developers themselves stated that they intended to create a competitive-oriented game, which, it would seem to me, renders a single-player mode a bit useless in the long run. Looking at a lot of games which are multiplayer-oriented and tack on a single-player in order to meet the expectations of the market, I'd much prefer a focus on one or the other, and being a multiplayer-oriented gamer, I was satisfied with the omission of a single-player campaign. That brings us to another criticism. With a price tag of $60 and only a multiplayer mode, critics felt that the price was not worth the content. I can see the problem with this, but in all seriousness, I find the price entirely justified. In the nearly 6 years since Shadowrun released, I've logged months of gameplay. Think of it this way. That's half the price of a Disneyland ticket, which is good for the 14 or so hours the park is open. Shadowrun has given me over 1,000 hours of entertainment for $60. It's just that good. But many critics may say, how can you continuously play a game that has only 9 maps and 3 game types? At first, the limitation on the amount of maps and game types may seem like a major drawback, but in my experience, I hardly noticed this supposed lack of content. The thing is, there's so much variation in each match that you don't notice that you're doing it all in the same old maps. One match you'll be facing a team of speedy elves with an arsenal of katanas, and the next you'll be fighting a squad of humans and trolls who just sit back with their sniper rounds and just pick you off, while they have maybe 1 or 2 elves who just flank you, teleport, and get behind you constantly. There are hundreds of combinations you can work with in order to best your opponents. But besides all the content criticisms, another flaw often pointed out about Shadowrun is its extreme differentiation from the original source material. For those of you who are unaware, Shadowrun started as a cyberpunk pen and paper game in the 80s, which is still actively played to this day. It was created by Jordan Wiseman, and its first video game incarnations played as an action RPG. Many critics had a problem with the huge genre shift in the game, and Wiseman openly condemned the title, cursing Microsoft for bastardizing the title into something very un-Shadowrun. Now, this is entirely true, and I can sympathize with those who expected a next-gen Shadowrun RPG experience, but I don't believe that is reason enough to overlook the title. Now, all criticisms aside, I'd like to give a few quick thoughts of my own, both positive and negative. At the time of its release, I was hardcore into both Halo and World of Warcraft, and to have some of my favorite elements in video games, spells and guns, come together was something that was practically non-existent in the current generation of games. Thassa did an excellent job of balancing the spells and tech. Never do I feel that any ability overpowers another. Many of them even have counters, such as Gust countering Smoke, and AM generators, which are small balls that emit a purple aura of anti-magic, which counter trees and strangle, causing them to disappear from the map. The maps complement the spells and tech extremely well. There's always intricate paths for teleporting, choke points for your strangle, and plenty of space to allow for mid-air combat with your gliders. They flow terrifically, and with most of them being symmetrical, they are fantastic for competitive play. The great thing, however, about the few asymmetrical maps is that there are hardly any balance issues regarding spawning on one side or the other. In fact, there's not a single map that I really have any problem with, which is rare for me when I play FPS. I usually hate at least half the maps in games. Now for my own criticisms. One of the biggest issues I have, which is relevant now more so than ever, with the dwindling online population and the long search times for matches, is the problem with host transferring. Shadowrun, like most Xbox games, does not have dedicated servers. If a player host quits the lobby, the game, in most cases, instantly ends and sends you back to the main menu. Now this probably could have been fixed, but due to Thassa going under a couple months after release, it's now a problem we're stuck with forever. Actually, pretty much every problem I have with the game is something that could easily be remedied if there was a developer to fix it. There are a number of exploits to get outside of maps, and a feature that could have used a lot of tuning was the vote kick system. Though at first you would think that the majority rule would make someone kick from a game, it doesn't work that way. Or at least it doesn't seem to, because with only one vote to not kick a player will often remain in the lobby. So the result, or a consequence of this, is that two friends could join a match and troll the shit out of everyone, and they'll just be stuck there, and no one can boot them. And essentially, you'll either be forced to leave or just sit there and deal with their shit. That said, these are overall minor issues that in no way discourage me from playing the hell out of this game. If I had to rate Shadowrun on the scale of 1 to 100, I'd give it a 95. I highly recommend that you pick this game up if you've never tried it before, or if you did try it and didn't like it, you should definitely give it a second chance. You can find a used copy online or at GameStop for under $10. I've even seen some Walmarts with new copies for $20 or $30, and if you can't find a physical copy, the Games on Demand section on the Marketplace on Xbox Live has it for $30, so you should definitely check it out if you haven't. Thanks for watching, guys, and be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Laters.